Ian from RDO here. Welcome to another album ranking, and today is the first of the Ronnie James Dio story. Ronnie James Dio, one of my favourite rock singers of all time. I discovered Ronnie, of course, on the Rainbow Rising album, and then I just sort of collected all of them, and then I discovered that he was in a band before that were part of Rainbow, all the usual things. So started out, and then when he did his solo stuff, followed that. I only ever got to saw him once. I didn't see him with Black Sabbath or Heaven and Hell, but I did see him on, I think he was promoting the Dream Evil album. I think it was that one. I can't remember, but he supported Alice Cooper, so I got Alice Cooper and Ronnie James Dio in one hit. Excellent stuff. Excuse me. So today we are going to start at the band that really got him going, and that is Elf, of course. Now, Elf were formed in 1967 by Ronnie James Dio, Doug Thaler, Gary Driscoll, Nick Pantas and David Feinstein, who was Dio's cousin. They were originally called the Electric Elves, but shortened it to the Elves, and then finally down to Elf. Obviously they disbanded in 1975 because half of the band got wrapped up in the first Rainbow album. They only released 3 albums, but 3 good albums. I like all 3 of them. There's not a bad album amongst them. So we'll get cracking. So coming in at number 3, we have got Carolina Country Ball, which was the second album, released in 1974. This was the first album that featured Craig Gruber on the bass. Now Craig would come back into Ronnie's life many years later. So we got Ronnie James Dio on the lead vocals, Steve Edwards lead guitars, Mickey Lee Soul on the keyboards and rhythm guitar, Craig Gruber on the bass, and Gary Driscoll on the drums. First track on this one is the title track, Carolina County Ball. Really nice of a bluesy shuffle song this is. Love the piano work from Mickey Lee Soul. Ronnie sounds great on this, like he does on most tracks. It's a really good track and I really like that one. Second track, LA 59. Again, one of those tracks that starts off with some piano and builds up pace. It's a gentle little rocker, a lovely track. Can't love listening to that one. Then we get Ain't It All Amusing. This is very Allman Brothers in places. It's a little bit heavier in as well, and I love the guitar work here from Steve Edwards. It's a terrific song. Then we get Happy. Great bass work here from Craig. He's a good bass player, really good track. Annie New Orleans, a little rocker track here. Starts off with that great little riff and piano. Great little rock track. The Rocking Chair Rock and Roll Blues. Love this track. That's Steve Edwards' guitar solo is brilliant in this. Ronnie absolutely nailing the vocals. Excellent track. Then we get a track called Rainbow. There we go. Even in Elf we had the word rainbow in a song. Must be one of the first songs that features this title, Rainbow. It's alright, it's not the best track on the album. Great vocal from Ronnie though. It's in the thing about this song, it's a little bit weak, but the sort of arrangement you'd get later on in his career. Then we get Do the Same Thing, my favourite track on this. This is the real first sort of heavy sound you get from Elf. Great rocker, and you can see where some of the rainbow arrangements came from that. Then we got Blanche. This one didn't really work on this album. It's a totally off kilter of what you expect from Ronnie James Dio involvement. It just doesn't sound right. That's only one way to put it. That's the last track on that album. On the whole, I like this album. A couple of tracks that I'm not too keen on. I think this is why this one's at number 3. But the rest of the album is pretty solid. It's a good listen. So I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 8.5. Okay, coming in at number 2, we got the third and final album released in 1975, Trying to Burn the Sun. Again, it's the same lineup as the previous album: Ronnie, Steve Edwards, Mickey LaSalle, Craig Robert and Gary Driscoll, and we got Mark Nusef doing some percussion as well. First track, love this track, Black Swampy Water. That bum 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 gets you hooked. Great little track, favourite track on the album. Prentice Wood, again, great rock track. Craig's bass line drives the song along. Fantastic track. When She Smiles, this is a mild track, not rocky, but it's got a nice shuffle to it. Ronnie sounds great on this, showing that he can doesn't just sing rock stuff, he can sing the gentler stuff. I don't know if the strings really do it for me, but hey ho. Good time music, some really nice guitar work here from Steve Edwards. It's a great track. Liberty Road, a great little boogie rocker. Love Gary Driscoll's drumming on this, absolutely solid. Shotgun Boogie, it's alright. It's probably one of the weaker tracks on the album, but doesn't mean that it's a bad track, it's just one of the weaker ones. Wonderworld, now this is a bit glam rock, it's a bit T-Rex sounding. It's got a great guitar solo on it and it's absolutely brilliant. Streetwalker, this is a funky blues number. Some great guitar work as ever from Steve Edwards. Really like this track. This has got a good album. A little bit more experimental. They try to do a little bit different. But I don't know if it was the right direction for the band. Luckily, Richie saved them. But on the whole, it's a great album. Take away the little experimental tracks, it's still pretty good. So I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 8.6. Okay then, so my number 1 is the self-titled debut album, Elf, released in 1972. This was actually produced by Ian Pace and Roger Glover of Deep Purple, because at the time Elf were doing a lot of touring with Deep Purple. If you've read Ronnie's book, you'll find all out this. It's a great story how Elf, it was actually Deep Purple that give Elf their break, and having Roger Glover as a producer isn't a bad start. So the people playing on this is what it's on the cover, is Roland Padavona, which is actually Ronnie James Dio, who was vocals and bass guitar, David Fenstein, his cousin, on guitars, Mickey LaSalle piano and organ, and Gary Driscoll on drums. First track on this album is Hoochie Coochie Lady. Love the guitar from this. David Bernstein, great riff, and a great vocal from Ronnie. Really strong track. First Avenue, great blues track. Well, Ronnie James Dio is playing bass on this, and he's brilliant on this. His bass line is terrific. Great track. Then we get my favourite track on here, probably Ronnie's best vocal, one of his best vocals with Elf, Nevermore. That voice is great on this. It's a great rock track. Fantastic stuff. I'm Coming Back for You. Another great track. Great guitar riffs on there. This is quite heavy. Drumming's brilliant on this. Absolutely brilliant. Sit Down Honey, Everything Will Be Alright. Now this reminds me of the very early stages of Whitesnake's career as well. If you think of that Snakebite album and the North Winds album, this is that sound, and it's really good. Ronnie's voice as good as David's. So great little track. Then we get Dixie Lee Junction. I love this. It's a great little blues number. More great guitar work from Ronnie's cousin David. Really good. Love Me Like a Woman. Another blues number, but Ronnie's vocals are absolutely killer. Gambler Gambler. Ronnie's bass line is brilliant. It's such a really good track. Great way to end the album. Great debut album this was. Some of the tracks are really heavy. I think you'd get some of this sign on Richie Blackmore's Rainbow album. I play this album a lot because it's just cool, and the production of it from Roger is pretty good, and I'm sure Richie was well aware of what was going on in this camp, because he always likes to know what's going on. So I can see why he wanted to work with Ronnie. So I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 9 out of 10. Okay, that's part 1 of Ronnie James Dio done. We'll be back later, of course, with retro ranking. This week we're going to have a bit of rock and roll and a band that really did the rock and roll revival in the 70s, Shawaddy Waddy. So join me for that. So see you laters.